Was working on some custom textures, to go along with my shaders, and think I may have actually bugged out the game because everything has become solid. Like the bed has become solid red, and it looks really bad. I thought I would go into a village just to show this off because it's so strange. But yeah, it's really weird. But, hang on. Those textures look normal. What's going on here? What? No! Haha, it was a making power the whole time, where we figure out how to code effects in the Origins creator. Today, we will be creating a method to control the size of your player model, in much the same way as the inchling from Extra Origins. Note that doing any of this will require Pehkui to work. I see a power like this having two potential uses. First, as default for an origin to be smaller or larger, as might be the case with a silverfish or an iron golem, and second, as an activated tool to shrink or grow on command, sort of Ant-Man style. As such, I'm going to switch up the format and start with some commands before getting into their applications. /scale set base is the default way to change every available scale. All of these scales can be found in-game or on the Curseforge link. The default scale is 1, and any change above or below that will increase or decrease the player's size proportionally. For example, 2 will be twice the size and 0.5 will be half the size. Importantly, these size changes, or any scale changes for that matter, will be removed on death without use of the command /scale persist. You can also dynamically change any individual scale, to make some goofy nightmares like this one, but bear in mind that the camera does not adapt along with them. It has its own scale to change. Similarly, size and speed are correlated, as I will demonstrate here. Given the same distance of 5 blocks and correcting for imperfect timing, you will see that becoming smaller results in moving much more slowly. While this is perhaps accurate to the size, I find it somewhat cumbersome, so when I make these powers, I will account for this by controlling the speed for each corresponding size. Similar effect is found when your size increases, though in the opposite manner. That is, your speed increases along with your height, which feels equally strange. The first power we will make will be a static size change, and in order to do that there's only two things that we need to account for: changing the size when we select the origin, and removing that size change when we remove the origin. This power can be accomplished with one file, by using action on callback. Entity action added will affect the player when they gain this power, which happens whenever this origin is chosen. Here we will use the AND function to run 3 commands. In order, they are scale set base 0.5 at s, scale set motion 2 at s, and scale persist set true at s. This will reduce the size of the player while maintaining their normal speed. Scale persist true will make it so that when the player dies, they do not lose this change. The @s selector in each of these commands makes it so whoever has the origin is the only recipient of these commands. It acts as though they had personally cast it in chat. To complete this power, we move on to entity action lost, which performs whenever the player removes this power, which also occurs whenever another origin is chosen. Here we only need 2 commands, /scale reset at s, which will apply universally to all scales we have changed, and /scale persist reset at s to make sure no scales are retained after death. And we can now test this power to see that it does in fact work. When this origin is chosen, our scale is reduced by half as intended while retaining a sufficient speed. We can also see that selecting the default origin of human returns us to our normal height. This functions regardless of which origin we decide to change into, as demonstrated here when I select the avian. Now we move on to the second power, which will allow you to manually increase or decrease in size at will. For this power, that is our goal: growing and shrinking. Before we move on to the origin's creator, I will introduce one other command, /scale get, which will return the current size of the selected entity for a selected scale. By default, the scale it returns is the base scale. This will be used shortly. To begin, we will use active self with an entity action. This action will consist of 2 commands: scale multiply base 2 at s and scale divide motion 2 at s, which will allow the player to double in size every time they activate this ability while retaining a normal speed. However, this presents a problem. There's no limit on the size the player can reach. To deal with this, we create a condition command. This will run the given command and compare it with a chosen value. For our purposes, we will use /scale get base at s with a comparison that it be greater than or equal to 4. This condition will be inverted. To explain this more thoroughly, if the player doubles in size, their scale is now 2, which is less than 4. If they double again, their scale is now 4, which is equal to 4, and so they cannot use this power again until they reduce in size. Speaking of which, copy the Enlarge file and rename it Reduce. This file will be an exact mirror of the previous file. However, the Origins creator does not accept numbers with decimals or division symbols, so I elected to remove the condition. To make this file work for reduction, you simply need to invert the original commands of the Enlarge file, divide the base, and multiply the motion. You will need one last file, which I have entitled Reset. This file will be an action on callback and an entity action lost that will result in the scale of the player resetting. With this done, we can now see that our origin has loaded in-game, and, sure enough, we can increase our size. There is a small error which causes size increases to sometimes lag, but that's not due to the code itself, but actually the mod. Of course, we can't increase our height again because we are now at a scale of 4. However, we can decrease in size, and these transformations are admittedly very fun to watch in third person. And because there's no limits on our decreasing scale, I can shrink back to fit my diorama from the beginning of this video. I will say, if you intend to make an inchling or otherwise small creature, would highly recommend chisels and bits or a similar mod to allow them to sort of tunnel out walls in people's homes, because it's functional and hilarious. So there you have it. You can now manipulate the size of your origins at will, but the applications of Pehkui are pretty vast. Shaping or scaling creatures is one thing, but it also allows you to extend reach, manipulate attack speed and damage, among a host of other interesting options. So let me know your thoughts, and if there's any other effects you'd like to see me create. Anyhow, I'm done here.